I feel like we're just focusing on, oh, Hispanics are the issue, Hispanics are the issue. Okay, but there's so many more other immigrants than just us. There's other ones, like you were saying, like they're fleeing from Germany. They're fleeing from Afghanistan.
Ukraine,
And I'm like, but
Russia.
there's so many other nations that are, trying to escape from what they're currently living in. But no, the problem is Hispanics.
Welcome to Nation of Immigrants. This has been a labor of love and a passion project of mine. I did a season of Nation of Immigrants earlier before the pandemic and during the Trump administration where I would talk about his different policies. And so I wanted to come back with a second approach on this topic of immigration law in the United States and of the immigrant experience. And so this is season 2 of Nation of Immigrants. And in this season, I'm going to be talking with some of my clients and others who are involved in immigration in the US. I wanted to introduce the topic and introduce myself as a host and talk about my experience with immigrants. And then in the following episodes, introduce you to some of my clients and the things that they've lived through. But I'm really excited about the opportunity today to talk with one of my clients. And she's going to be hosting this episode and interviewing me and giving us a chance to get to know her, to get to know Tingen Law, to get to know me and the firm and what we're about and what we're doing. So, Sonia, welcome to our studio there in Virginia. It's so good to see you.
It's good to be here, Jacob.
Yeah. Well, we are pumped to talk about this Nation of Immigrants podcast, but I wanted to start by talking to you about your immigration case. And it's frankly, for me, representing you and your mom has been one of the highlights of my career from the beginning. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Oh, the joys. Okay, so starting off, I met you when I was small. So in my eyes, you have always been this top-notch lawyer, even when I was like, what, 12, 13.
Hmm.
Um, I remember coming in with my mom and she would have this little envelope of files and stuff, which I never even knew what was in any of those, to be honest. I just went with her and, half translated any questions that she would have, even though I didn't even know what I was asking. But you were a great pillar, even from the beginning. You would always answer the questions. And then when we found out you spoke Spanish, I didn't have to translate anymore. I just had to sit there and just listen. And I'm like, thank God I don't have to translate anymore because I didn't even know what I was asking. But no, you've been great. Always keeping us, in up to date with what's going on with the new laws. Our visas, being like up to date. I didn't to this day, anytime they ask me anything, I'm like, pause. Let me email Jacob real quick because I don't even know what's going on with my own stuff. I don't even know what I'm called. Sometimes I'm like, I think I'm an alien. I think. Let me
I
ask
think
Jacob.
I'm an
Hold on.
alien.
Or I'll go. I think I'm an alien. Or I'll go back to my emails and I'm like, I think I asked him this question before. Give me a second. And I'm like, Jacob. It's all I type in my emails now. And I'm like, yep, that's what he said. This is what he said right here. It's what it is.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions about that because I know we're not interviewing you today about your
Mhm.
case, but just to, you're on the cusp of getting residency. That should come in any
Ah,
day now this
please.
year. I will mention that USCIS, and we've already talked about this, right? Like USCIS has like 8 million cases, and about 5 million of those cases are delayed beyond their processing time. But I'm hoping yours
Yeah.
won't be one of those, and hopefully we get that green card this
Fingers
year.
crossed.
Fingers crossed. So, but you mentioned a couple of things that frequently comes up as the immigration experience for children of immigrants who learn English and Spanish, which is um, you have to translate, and that's a big responsibility to place
It
on young
is.
shoulders because what
Yeah,
you
it
translate
really is.
matters a great deal. And then the other piece, which you know, what am I? What am I called? And you mentioned, am I an alien? Which uh,
Yes.
you know, yes, technically that is one of the terms that's in use, but it's interesting, like during the Trump administration, again, one of the reasons I decided to start this podcast, they had an effort to go through all the regulations and make sure that it never said immigrant, but that it always said alien because it's more of
Mhm.
an alienating term. And
Yes.
so it's just interesting. So can you speak to like your experience as being a child translator, the pressure that that felt like, and kind of these titles that you're not sure how they apply to you in your life?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going from ordering a McDonald's order, which you're looking up there and you're just like, I want that right there. And you can picture it. But then when they're coming at you with all these legal names, sometimes you don't even know how to pronounce them. And then also when you're a child and you've only spoke Spanish, and you're trying to get acclimated with the English language, you don't realize that the words are mixed up. The way that we speak it and the way that the English translation is not they don't correlate together. Um, so sometimes I would try to be asking the question from Spanish straight to English, but I didn't know that I had to switch the words around to be able to ask the right question or in the right manner. Um, and then, when I would go in for job interviews or even getting my license, and they would ask me like, "Okay, well, fill this form," and you see like 5, 6 different options for you, and you're like staring at it like, "What am I? Like, am I a like an alien, or am I a non-citizen, like a non-resident?" Like there's just so many options, and you
Mm,
think you follow under one, but technically you follow under a different one, or you could follow under two of them, but because of one form or one digit off of your visa, you follow under a different one. So sometimes I literally just close my eyes and pick one, and I'm like, when they see my visa, they will figure it out, right?
right.
Wrong. Wrong.
Yeah.
You have to figure it out yourself, because if not, you just pick the wrong one and they're like, "Sucks. You don't classify for that." And you're like, "But I have." And so it's hard. It's hard, when your parents are looking at you, like, with those big eyes of hope that you will be able to break
Hmm.
the barrier between them and, somebody who speaks only English, and they're like, "Yeah, my kid got that." You're staring at them like, just was ordering McChicken nuggets yesterday, and
Right.
then now I'm having to, like, envision myself as a lawyer for my parents, and try to even understand what the other person is trying to translate to me, and then look at my mom and tell her, "Okay, so this is what they're saying."
It's a lot to ask of a
It's
little kid.
hard.
Um,
Yeah, it's hard.
I think of my kids and how they struggle, you know, for a kid, even just to order those chicken McNuggets. Like, I think it's fun that that's the example you use, but like ordering food
Yeah,
in a restaurant can be a big deal for a little kid, right? Like, I'm talking to an
yeah,
adult and I'm saying what I want. And then to make it that you are your parent's spokesperson, it's an even bigger deal. So
it
yeah, it's
is.
huge. Um,
Yeah, because like, you're wanting to make sure that you're giving them the help that they need, because they don't have anybody else to turn to. And so it's like all that pressure to make sure that it's right. I will be honest, like some of the things that like all of the hoops we had to go through to get to where we are now with our visa, kind of like a blur to me.
mhm,
Um, so because like I said, like in my eyes, I leave everything to you. Like I sometimes don't even know what was going on with the process. My mom's like, "Oh, this is where we're at." I'm like, for example, I didn't know that we were no longer under the U visa.
well, so
Did not
so
know.
I mean, you currently are in legal presence in the US, right? Like that is
Right.
told while you're waiting for the green card. But yeah, you had U visa and then you applied for the green card and that's what we're waiting on. So that's kind of where we're at. And so, in a lot of these processes there are just kind of these no man lands that exist in the
Mhm.
law where you don't exactly have a U visa, you have a pending residency application and you can get work authorization based on that. But residency is around the corner for you, and that one's solid. That one will feel good,
Yeah.
and we are so close. So,
Yeah, I definitely think explaining what you have to some people is kinda hard when like I said, like, there's so many different ways to explain it, but but it's also them not understanding either. So you're trying to explain what you think you understand to somebody who doesn't know anything about what's going on. I think that's probably one of the hardest things. I'm just grateful that at my jobs, I just show them what you send and they're like, okay, we'll
Right.
go with it.
Yeah,
But
no,
sometimes some places are not like that.
the option to email me and just have me send back like the answers and to have an employer that's like, okay, sounds good, right? Has
Yeah.
been helpful. And I've been able to help a number of clients that way to explain the laws. One of the things, this to me actually is one of the reasons that I wanted to do Nation of Immigrants and to do this podcast is because frequently people will say things like, well, why don't they just get in line, right? And that
Mhm.
is the probably one of the things that I want to clarify is that for so many immigrants there is no line. Like there's just not a line that people can get into, and that's why immigrants don't get in line. Like we cap the number of visas and you can only get in under certain circumstances, and many of these people, especially at the southern border, are fleeing for their lives from violence. There are some who are fleeing poverty, and but I would say the vast majority are fleeing violence or a combination of violence and poverty, and very few are fleeing from just poverty. And then even when you're in the United States, options arise where immigrants add value to our society, and we want to give them status in our country, which is where the U visa comes from. People who've been the victims of crime and then collaborate with
Mhm.
police and help out, they deserve a visa under our laws because we want to incentivize reporting crime in immigrant communities. And so there's just a lot of things to know about before we just jump to this conclusion and say things like, well, why don't they get in line? And again, there's a long answer, but the short answer is there's not one.
Yeah.
And so I want to share that more frequently and with a louder voice here on this podcast.
Yeah, because I mean, when we came to the US, I was only 3. We didn't come by no airplane. We walked through the whole desert. We did the whole illegal entrance. Um, but
Do you
I'm
remember it
grateful at the time that we came.
at 3?
Thankfully, no.
Mm,
But I've heard so many stories from my mom and my grandma that at this point I might as well remember it myself.
mhm.
Um, but I'm glad that I don't remember that because just by hearing the stories, I'm like, "Okay, that's traumatic." And I'm glad that it was that generation and not this generation because I don't think I can trudge the desert, okay? Like, mom says that they walked maybe 3 days on sand, and, like, one of the ladies that came with them, her shoes disintegrated. She didn't even realize when they disintegrated, okay?
Wow.
Um, and I was only 3. I cannot imagine what it was like to trudge all of that with a 3-year-old, you know?
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
alone, having to go, like, going from walking the desert for hours on end, then being put on a boat or something that you're going God knows how fast, and you're having to hold on for dear life. People would fall off of them, and they wouldn't go back for them because if they went back, they risked getting caught. Like, and then, like, just going through all of that, and then finally getting to the promised land, as everybody puts it, that coming here, there's so many promises that you're going to have a better life than the one that you leave behind.
Yeah.
Like, it's some people are putting their lives on the line. Some of them die out there or they get caught, which, at least they're still alive, but some of them don't make it. Um, so it's like just to thinking about that, it's hard. Like like, not everybody comes here for luxuries. They just want to get away from what's going on in their countries.
Yeah.
Because they hear from everybody who does live here, oh, the promises, like, oh, you're gonna you it's a better way of living, but it's like you have to go through all that to come to the US. And then from there, it's not easy just to get a visa. Oh, you're a citizen. It's not easy. I mean, like I was mentioning, I've been here since I was 3 years old. I am 28 years old now,
Yeah.
and there's still a bunch of steps. They're still waiting. It's not like you can just drop 10 grand and you're like, "Okay, I'm a citizen now."
Because some people will say, well, I know people who entered illegally and they already have status, and my such and
Right.
such family member is doing it the right way, and they're still waiting. But, these are snapshots that people see of different people's stories. Like, there are people who have come in after you, Sonia, that I've been able to fix their situation before yours. But like, there's so many elements that are outside of my control when it comes to how
Right.
USCIS is going to process something, the courts are going to process something, who's president, and how they decide to mix things up and change how things are processed.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there's so much going on and so many different pieces that it makes it really difficult to say, oh yes, come in illegally and it'll be faster, because it may not. It may be slower. Or come in legally and
Right,
it'll be
exactly.
faster. It may be slower. It may be faster. It's really kind of up in the air. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, 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 you're fine. Because I mean, yeah, like, the ones who do say, "Oh, well, if you came in and did it the right way, then that's okay." Okay, but what's the right way? Because let's say you did it the right way. You still run the risk of getting sent right back. You run the risk of it not being approved. You run like, you there's still so many risks that come along with doing it the right way, just like you would if you didn't do it the quote unquote "right way."
I also want to throw in there, when people talk about the right way, is that particularly when it comes to asylum, so people fleeing their countries because it's dangerous,
Mhm.
um, there's nothing improper about coming to this nation's borders and claiming asylum. That's the right way.
Right.
Like, that's how you ask for asylum. Um, and interestingly, we have a process where if you come across, like, at a port of entry and you are interviewed, and you say, "Hey, you've got to let me in. They're going to kill me if you send me back." You get interviewed, you get a credible fear interview, and they let you into the country if they believe you have a credible fear of being harmed in your home country, and they let you in. And it's only in recent years that that's become more challenging, because uh, interestingly, is during the Trump administration, there was a point in time where they were saying, "Do it the right way, come across a port of entry." And so then immigrants were coming across a port of entry, and then the Trump administration was interviewing them. People were passing the credible fear interview, but they weren't following the usual process, which is to admit them into the country and give them a court date. Instead, what they were doing was saying, "Okay, now wait in Mexico while we figure this out." And that's how these tent cities developed on the border of Mexico and the US. And in terms of administration, that was just an administrative nightmare, figuring out how these immigrants are actually going to get due process, which our laws, our Constitution requires. And so, unfortunately, that continues to be the case under the Biden administration in many instances, where people will come across at a regular port of entry. They want to be interviewed and do it the right way. And then when they try to do it the right way, they get forced into impossible situations, like living at the US Mexico border for who knows how long. And so, that's one of the points I wanted to make, is that US immigration law has made it so that the right way isn't the right way, and that there is no way, like, there's no line, even for those humanitarian basic, like, needs that these people have. And so it's incredibly challenging and a little bit heart-wrenching. At a minimum, I can say that the kinds of family separation that were happening during that one period during the Trump administration, that's not happening. But the minute that that was announced, I knew, and it just made me feel sick to my stomach, because I knew from then there are kids and parents who are never going to see each other again. And that is the case. I think I saw one report recently that it's upwards of 100 kids. They still haven't been able to place them with their parents. And so I don't know what the US government is going to do with those families they separated, or with those 100 and some odd kids. But that's terrible and terrifying. So, yes, I just want to say yes and yes. Like, there's no line. And when we talk about the right way, we have made it impossible to do it the right way, because even when you do it the right way, we punish you. And that's, to me, very inappropriate. I remember you mentioned, Sonia, also about how dangerous it was to travel to the US. And people don't understand that people are coming to the US not because they want to take our jobs, or because they want to undermine American society, or some of these other ridiculous theories that are thrown out there. People are coming because they have no other options. I mean, that is it. Like, the US is a country of promise, a country of laws. I believe in American exceptionalism, and so do the people that are coming to our southern border and that are coming from other immigration methods. They believe America's amazing. I mean, that's why they're coming. Okay. But I remember early on in my career when I had a mother whose child was fleeing gang violence in El Salvador. And she said to me this, which sent chills down my spine, but I think it's important. She said, I would rather my son die on the way to the US with hope in his heart than die in my country with no hope at all. And that
Yep.
is where people are at. That's why they're coming. They're not coming for economic opportunity. Of course, they want that because that's the promise of America. That's the American dream. But I think we need to
Mhm.
recognize and own up to the fact that conditions really are that bad in some of these places and in some of these countries. And we need to give people a leg up because America is an exceptional, wonderful land, and there is room. Uh, maybe not in New York right now, according to the mayor, but there's plenty of room in other areas of the
Yeah.
United States. And so, yeah, we want people to come and we want to create a system where they can do it safely and contribute to our society. But that's neither here nor there. Sonia, go ahead, take it away. Ask me what you want to ask me.
Tell me about you. What we all wanna know Jacob. Jacob is what we want to know. Under the microscope, please go ahead.
Thanks for that introduction, Sonia. Appreciate it. No, so I'm me, Jacob Tingen, and I am the founder of Tingen Law. It's a law firm that's been around for about 10 years. I graduated from law school, and the trouble was I couldn't find a job. So 2011, 2012, those were some of the hardest years for new graduating lawyers to find jobs. And
Yep.
so, as luck would have it, I decided to start my own firm. And so that's what led me to create Tingen Law. And at first, I didn't think I would do immigration. Throughout law school, I always
Mhm.
thought I'm going to do corporate M&A work. I'm going to do corporate work. I want to do business law. I always knew I would start my own firm. I wanted to have my own business, but I didn't think I would do immigration law. Now, I'm fluent in Spanish. You mentioned that, right? That it was really nice to you.
Yeah. No, I was like, "What is this white boy over here speaking fluent Spanish?" That floored me, y'all, when he just, like he goes, "Oh, you speak Spanish?" Mom goes, "Yes, I don't speak any English." Now, mind you, this is broken English is not the best. And he goes, "Okay." And then he just starts talking in Spanish, and I'm sitting there like, so I just got demoted. I just lost my job. That is how that went down. I was like, "You speak Spanish?"
That's
He goes,
fun.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
And he like and it wasn't even like that's broken English
Mhm.
accent. No, no, this man spoke Spanish. I said, "Are you sure you're white? Are you
Yeah.
sure?"
I get that
And
sometimes.
I'm
People
like,
think I'm Hispanic, and I'm all like, "No, I'm
"Yeah,
just
like I thought we
gringos
were
that
from
come."
Spain, maybe."
Yeah. It's funny because people will tell me I have good Spanish, and then they meet my wife, who is also, she's from Utah, right? And so, they hear her speak, and they're like, "Wow, like, her Spanish is good. You need some work, dude." That's what they tell me. So, you gotta meet her
Represent
someday.
Utah.
Yeah. Um, so I graduated law school, and then I decided to start the firm, and I called up Bob Redmond, who I had done some pro bono work for as a law student. And that's actually where I met you and your mom when I was a law student doing pro bono work. And I said, "Hey,
Okay.
can I take on a couple of cases?" Because I had to leave a voicemail. I said, "Hey, can I take on a couple of cases? I'm starting my own practice. I want to figure this out." And then he called back and said, "Hey, Jacob, you asked if you could take on a couple of cases. Can you take on a couple hundred?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because
Yeah, just a few.
he
Just a
was
few.
moving from one firm to another, and he couldn't take his pro bono caseload with him. And so I had this really neat opportunity to help people like you and your mom, and I ended up with about 150 cases from that. And I'm really grateful for Tanya for supporting me in that decision. I just really feel grateful that she said yes, and that we decided to go forward and do this. She said, "Get malpractice insurance." Um, so we did that, and I got started. And speaking Spanish helped me. People trusted me immediately, even though I didn't have any experience, because I could speak the language. And there were a lot
I
of
don't think it's
Go ahead.
that.
Oh, what is it?
I think it's I think it's, the fact that you wanted to help
Hmm.
and
Thank you.
you put yourself in there. Speaking the language is phenomenal, don't get me wrong, because then that way they can be heard, be communicated with, but I feel like you speaking the language made them be able to connect with you more. So, like, it comes with that. It comes with the fact that you went out of your way to learn Spanish, and even if some things, like, at the time, maybe not, there were still some things that you were still learning. You put yourself out there. You
Yeah.
tried, and that's all that they wanted. It was somebody who wanted to help. So I
Right.
feel like that's where you became successful in our in our world, is because we're like, okay, well, we have this white guy who speaks Spanish, by the way, and wants to help you. That's where you became successful
Thanks, Sonia. I
in
appreciate
our
that.
world.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So, I mean, so yeah, I did want to help. And that's the thing, I guess when I look back on my career is like I said, I wanted to do corporate M&A and I wanted to do business
Mhm.
law and those kinds of, and I still do, right? Like we're still doing that. Um, but I think the thing that I learned from my time over these last 10 years running the firm and taking on these cases is that if I could do it over again, I wouldn't change anything. Like, I really am grateful for the lessons that I learned, the way that representing immigrants has changed me and my opinions, my point of view on a lot of things. So I'm grateful. And yeah, it's for me, I've always been the kind of person that wants to help. It's true, like just in my personal life, in my church community, those kinds of things. Like I know that that's part of who I am, but I did not expect you to say that. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No,
Um,
let me tell you this.
Go ahead.
Coming to your office and, watching you and, like, I guess because 'cause I've grown up around lawyers my whole life since we've had to, come in and renew stuff. From when I was little, I wanted to be a paralegal like you. It was, like, what I wanted to do until I found out you have to go to court, and then I was like, "Maybe not for me." Um, but yeah, growing up, because I would, we would come see you and stuff, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be just like you.
Oh, that's fun.
But then I was like, I'm scared of going to court. So I was like, maybe it's not for me, but I can do things in the background. But, yeah, and then I was introduced to the auto industry, and
And that's where you
that
are
story
today,
died
right?
right there. Yep.
Cars. That's awesome. No,
And I would
I'm
not have that without you.
well, I'm glad you're enjoying your career though. And that was funny, the last time we
Yeah.
talked, um, you know, that played prominently in what we discussed was how
Yeah.
southern you are, right? like, like, like because a lot of people might think, oh, these immigrants, but like you came here when you're 3, and I think your southern accent
Yeah.
is stronger than mine. And I was born in Georgia, right? Like and so yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Um, all right. Well, yeah, so that's who I am. Thank you for helping me introduce that piece. I wanted to talk about podcasts some and why I'm
Yeah, I
doing.
was gonna ask
Yeah,
you,
go ahead.
why Nation of Immigrants? Like, why the name, first of all?
Mhm.
And what made you come up with the idea of the podcast? Like, you just wake up one day and go, I like my voice. I'm gonna start a podcast.
Not quite. No. So what happened was it was in the Trump administration when I first did this, and there were just so many immigration policies coming out that I thought somebody should be
Mhm.
speaking about this, and that someone should be me, right? Because
Right.
I would turn on the TV or I would read the news and I would see people commenting about immigration topics and not have all of the information or not have the experience or perspective that I had. And even when I talk to clients, now I think that there's definitely a space for immigrants to be talking about these issues too, right? And I
Mhm.
think we need more voices in this space who passionately care about immigrants and immigration. Um, and so in I guess what I would call season 1 during the Trump administration, I would literally each week open the news, read the first headline that angered me, and then talk about it for about 20 minutes. Uh, but this
You're like, "I'm
season,
gonna vent, and I'm gonna vent it right."
that's right. That's exactly what I did. But this season, I want to do it differently because the immigrant story isn't necessarily about me. It's not necessarily about the lawyers, right? It's about our
Right.
clients. And so in this second season, I wanted to start exploring immigration from the other perspective, which is I wanted to start interviewing clients, which is why I wanted to invite you here to talk to me. Like I could have just had a staff member do it or another attorney, and we could have had a nice philosophical question. But I want people to meet my clients, right? And know that you are
Yeah.
real people. And for you to say, yeah, I mean, I was brought in illegally, right? But I'm going to be a green card holder soon. And these are the experience. Like, I want people to know you, but also I want them to know the other immigrant clients I have, because you guys have changed my life. You have changed my political opinions. You have changed some of my beliefs. And I think that as more people get to know you, you will change their beliefs, their political beliefs, their point of view. And so that's very important to me. And the reason why Nation of Immigrants is because that's what the US is, right? Like, America is a nation of immigrants. And I think that we've forgotten about that. And it's
Yeah.
so Obama said it, Reagan said it, and Trump has been saying that immigrants poison the blood of America, and I could not disagree more. There is, that's a statement that Ronald Reagan would never agree with, right? That's a statement that
Mm-mm.
I could never agree with, and I think of the Statue of Liberty and bring me you're tired, you're poor, you're weary, right? This is who we want. This is part of the American
Yeah.
story. In fact, if we want to talk the blood of America, let's talk about its DNA. Immigrants are part of that. And so,
Yeah.
for me, America's a nation of immigrants. I can't fathom a world, but it's the one we currently live in, where immigrants come in the right way across a port of entry and say, "Hey, they'll kill me if I go back." And we tell them, "Okay, wait outside." It drives me
Yeah,
nuts,
no.
and we've gotta fix it, and
The
so
dog will be
that's
right
why
with
I'm
you.
doing this. Go ahead, what?
Yeah, no, I definitely think, I mean, in my eyes at least, America is a big melting pot. Like, you're not gonna find somebody that's not from somewhere or doesn't have family members from somewhere, just because they're not from South America or, on the side of the border, doesn't mean that they don't have somebody somewhere in their line that's not from Europe, that's not from Spain, that's not from Canada. Like, it's just a big melting pot, and I feel like if we didn't have immigrants from all over, we wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't have the jobs that we have now. We would not have the ideas, the creativity that we have now to be where we are in America.
Like, when they talk about World War II and they talk about Germany, Nazi Germany, right? And when we know that
Mhm.
Germany's in a different place today, right? So this isn't a bag on
Right,
Germany or
right.
anything. But one of the things they talk about is the brain drain, that lots of really highly educated people that were opposed to the regime left. Many of those people came to the US who were German,
Yep.
and they have contributed
Mhm.
to our society. They were immigrants and they helped us out. When I look at countries right now, like Venezuela, we have a large Venezuelan population coming to the US. Or even when I just talk to my clients, and I could tell you some stories there. We've got doctors, we've got lawyers, we've got surgeons. They're
Mhm.
coming over, and it's
Engineers, like, we have it
engineers,
all.
and they're coming over for asylum. They're coming across illegally because it's their only option, because they didn't have
Mhm.
time to put together a go bag and a visitor's visa and then apply for asylum. Like, it was their only option. And so I've got clients who are more highly educated than me, more skilled than me, and
Mm.
because our immigration system will not get them work authorization faster, will not get them through the asylum process faster, they're driving Ubers. We've got like a
Yep.
doctor shortage in the US. We could solve that with a amnesty in the wave of a wand. It's nuts what we're doing. And so, I'm worried that if we don't let immigrants in, and then if we don't reform our student visas and immigrant visas in such a way that we hold on to those people that we've educated, that we might experience a brain drain. Like, we could make
Yep.
America so much better if we were better for immigrants. And it's funny because when you look at the economy and how the US economy is recovering better from the pandemic anywhere else, and everybody's all like, "Oh, the southern border crisis, the southern border crisis." There's a growing body of evidence that it's the influx of immigrants to the US that is
Yep.
buoying up our economy, and we're ignoring this very important factor that this is a positive for us. And the idea, um, that immigrants harm our economy or harm our society is just completely bogus. And we need to move on, and we need to become a nation that accepts and loves immigrants, because frankly, it is the blood of America.
It is. That I feel like I don't wanna say, like, my thing is, why is it just Hispanics the problem, but there's so many other
There's that too.
it's just a
There's just
question.
some flat out
I'm just a
racism.
question. I feel like we're just focusing on, "Oh, Hispanics are the issue, Hispanics are the issue." Okay, but there's so many more other immigrants than just us.
Mhm.
Um, like, we're not the only ones trying to enter into the US. There's other ones, like you were saying, like, they're fleeing from Germany. They're fleeing from, Afghanistan.
Ukraine,
I'm like, but
Russia.
there's so many other nations that are, trying to escape from what they're currently living in. But no, the problem is Hispanics.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely
Where's
part
the
of the
problem?
conversation. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's part of the conversation too, is that, when you've got and again, former presidents saying things like Haiti's a crap hole of a country, right? Um, and
Right,
currently they have this gang crisis. We shouldn't look down upon Haitians who come to our border seeking safety.
right.
Right.
Exactly. It just mind blows the fact that they're just isolating one problem, or, like, they're just focusing on this, but it's like, but you have so many other people trying to get help. But yet instead of viewing it in a, well, okay, we might need the help in this avenue. Did you not remember what happened to Florida when they went in with all those laws?
Mhm.
There's no construction workers where
Right.
there was a shortage on that end. Do you wanna go construct a house? I don't
Well,
even know the blueprint of that, okay? I can't even build a Lego without instructions, and there's people who are willing to work outside for hours in the
yeah.
beating sun, in the rain, in the cold. I'm fine in my office. Look, I have an office where I go, I deal with
Yeah.
my customers. I don't have to be out there.
Right.
Okay, I'm blessed. I'm blessed on that. But there's people who are willing to do all that, who are willing to
Who
do those
want
jobs
to
that
do
you
it.
don't wanna do.
Right.
Why are you complaining? If you
Well,
don't wanna do it, but it needs to be done somehow, what's the problem?
yeah. Well, and I will say that immigrants, like we've already talked about, I mean, they boost our economy.
Yeah,
They will take jobs. Like we waste so much food that just dies in the fields because we don't harvest it, right? And and then because we're so focused on keeping people out instead of regulating how they come in, um, it opens the gates for people to take advantage of immigrants in these awful ways. Like, especially when it comes to
right.
the agricultural industry, there's been allegations of like essentially slavery of immigrants coming in and being sold from farm to farm to harvest things. And I'm not making this up. There are real things about this. We'll
No,
put
there
some
is
links in
these
the
are real
video
cases,
description.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nightmarish, and it's because of how we are treating immigrants. And I'll add another, historical point is America is a nation of immigrants, but this isn't something like that we've never struggled with, right?
Yeah,
When you look at our
it's not new.
history, there's Irish Catholics, there's the Japanese during World War II, and the things that we did to
Yep.
those people here in the U.S., making camps of our own. Um, and so, yeah, we've impacted a lot of lives in negative ways, but we need, as a nation, to learn our lesson and recognize that immigrants overwhelmingly help us. I would also say that, like, finally, a lot of this, making things more strict on immigration hurts a lot of people in Hispanic communities. But ironically, they came about because of 9/11. So a lot of the more harsher aspects of our immigration
Yeah,
laws are a reaction to 9/11, which was terrible, and we
and it's
should prevent.
reasonable, like, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
because, I mean, that was a gruesome time.
right, but those people, they came in on student visas. You know, they came in with visitors visas, and it's not that we shouldn't be concerned about a porous border, but the way to solve a porous border isn't to try to keep everybody out, but to admit them in a fair way and say, okay, all right, let's interview you. And the thing is, we have processes for this. We're just not following them. Like we have the credible fear interview. We could do that and let people into the country and give them a court date, right? And so, yeah, so the southern border is its own ball of wax. There are all sorts of other policy things that are out there in terms of immigration when it comes to student visas and investor visas and family visas and work visas. that we could look at. But yeah, so Nation of Immigrants, I wanted people to understand what my clients live with. I wanted to get information out there, accurate information, advocacy for immigrants out there, because I know from personal experience that immigrants are good for our community. And then the other thing that we're doing at Tingen Law is, and this for me has become my new like avenue for business for me because I like business, I like being an entrepreneur. Is I but most, not most, but there's a large percentage of new businesses in the US that are started by immigrants. It's something like 25% or north of that. And so why are immigrants starting so many of our businesses? I had an immigrant consult come in once, and this guy was all like, I heard that if I was a millionaire, I can get a visa, a green card in the US. And I said, that's right. There's a millionaire visa for investment. And he's all like, but I'm looking at this guy and he's in a button down and jeans. And I'm all like, are you a millionaire? And he's all like, well, about 3 million. I was all like, holy crap. And then I would go,
Yeah.
so what do you do? And like, what's your deal? And he goes, well, I learned how to install solar panels because I was an engineer in my home country. And when I came across and I was doing construction and the project required solar panels and nobody on site knew how to do it. So I learned how to do it. And then I decided to start my own contracting business and I install solar panels. I hire like 20 US citizens. I'm like,
Yep.
what? And then he goes, can I get legal status? And I said, well, how did you come in? I came in illegally. I'm like, I can't help you. It blew my, like, we
Dun-dun.
looked at his situation. We looked at different avenues and, there's opportunities for things like national interest waivers and other stuff, but I couldn't find like a clear path for him to get legal status. And that to me is nuts. That's nuts that we would
Mhm.
force him to leave the country. Or, this person is generating significant economic activity in the US. Anyway, so I
Yep.
just feel like the more of these kinds of stories we can share, the better we make it for immigrants. And for Tingen Law, our story is immigration and business and IP, and it's because we want to help immigrants survive and then thrive. And that is our goal: is to help you go from coming into the country and succeeding in your business and your life. So that's what we're trying to
Yeah,
do.
because I mean, even in the auto industry, like we get so many, Hispanics where we are at, especially since we sell a lot of commercial vehicles. We
Mhm.
have like the dump trucks, the electric vehicles, all that stuff. We have a lot of Hispanics that come through there and they'll buy 5 cars, 6 cars at a time for their companies. And I'm like, you have a company? And they're like, "Yeah, that's the only way that, so, like, like, yeah, this is why my company, like, it's construction, it's, electrical work, whatever the case is that but they don't have the proper needs to be able to register the car in their name, so they do it in the business name." And I'm just like, it just like, for me to sit there and, like, you have this, like, you've made it this far, but you can't get to the other side.
Yeah.
But you're being like, you're successful in this, and you're helping out people build their first homes, fix their electrical problems at home. I mean, like, what do you do? I'm not gonna Google or YouTube how to turn my lights on after I've blown the power myself. But yet you have somebody that is willing to come to your house and do that for you, and it's just like, but we can't offer them help, but they're willing to help you.
Right.
They're willing to go on like, they're willing to come to your house, build you a house from scratch, which I can't even bake cookies from scratch, let alone a house, and we can't help them. But like you said, like, you ever drive down the road and you see apartment complexes and you're like, "Oh, wow, those like the skeleton." 2 days later, you walk by and it's a whole building, like, it's the whole neighborhood's created already
Yeah.
in,
No,
like, 2
I've seen
days.
that.
And I'm like, "Did I just drive by 2 days ago?" And then all of a sudden you have Juan Pablo and Marcus over there, and they're like and they're just twirling around their tools like, "Yep, we're done." And I'm like, "But we can't help them?"
Yeah. This is what I think is, and this frankly is the best thing that our government could do for our economy right now would be amnesty. Because I know so many immigrants that if they had legal status, have enough saved up to buy a home right now. which is one of the
Yeah.
best indicators of the economy, right? Um,
Yeah.
I know so many that you can't in Virginia, for example, you can't get a Class A contractor's license without a Social Security number. So
Yeah.
if all of the contractors I know could suddenly move from like Class B to Class A licenses, who have the skills, expertise, and business know how to make it happen, but can't do it because they don't have a Social Security number. I mean, imagine what that would do to our economy. Imagine what that would do for supply and demand. I mean, right now we're talking about a housing shortage. Imagine how many more homes could be built if we unleashed
Mhm.
what immigrants who are in our communities could do if we would only give them a chance. I mean, I just think that that's a powerful, powerful, powerful notion.
Out of all the cases that you have worked from, like, either from when you started taking over pro bono up until now, are there any cases that stick out to you that have impacted you in any way or that you still remember, every detail on?
Yeah, I mean, so there's your case, there's you and your mom.
Whoop, whoop.
Um, you
We made
know,
the list.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely your case, and we talked about it beforehand. We weren't going to share the details of your case. You're the victim of a crime, and that allows you to get a U visa. And I
Yeah.
like the U visa. I've been able to help many many clients who have unfortunately been the victims of crime in the U.S. And just a note to immigrants who might be watching is, if you're the victim of a crime in the U.S., you should report that. Don't be afraid that the police will deport you. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The police will
Oh
be
my gosh, that
grateful.
was one thing. Yes, that
Talk
was
about
one thing
that.
that we were always worried about is I mean, and you hear it around in your communities, "Oh, I can't report it to the police, I can't say anything because once they know that I'm illegal, they're gonna deport me immediately."
Right.
And I'm like, "That's not the case, though."
Yeah,
Like, but that's the fear.
that's the
That's the
fear.
fear. You report anything, "Oh, no, they're gonna know that they don't have anything holding me here, and they're gonna deport me immediately." And I'm
Well,
like,
let me add this. Let me add this. If you're an immigrant and you've been the victim of a crime, or if you are in a domestic violence situation at home and the abuser is saying, "Oh, if you call the police, I'll tell them you don't have legal status." That's abuse, by the way, for starters. But
yeah.
secondly,
Oh, immediately.
yeah, but secondly, by reporting it to the police and getting help, they're not going to deport you. They'll probably give you a path to legal status. And so that's something that you need to
Mhm.
be aware of. The second
And when
thing,
he means
go ahead.
crime or, like, any, but when he's talking about crime, he doesn't just mean, like, domestic violence, he means sexual abuse, you got hit by a car, somebody put their
Assault.
hands on you in any kind of way. Yeah, any of those, following things is what falls onto that. Don't just think that it's just one scenario that you fall into, and that's the only one that can happen to you for you to be able to get this kinda help.
There's a list. There's a whole list of crimes that if you're a victim of, and you help police, and so there's a big incentive on you to call police and help because they want your help.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there are so many others who have been through similar circumstances. Like half of my clients' lives should be made for TV movies about people fleeing from
We
Central and
should
South
have our
America.
own novellas.
No, no, for real. I mean, it's nuts.
Mhm.
Like the things that people have gone through. But this one particular client, I mean, had been kidnapped, machine guns, people driving by on motorcycles. There were politics involved. I mean, um, and we'll
Was it
hear
Pablo
from some.
Escobar?
Do what?
Was it Pablo Escobar?
No, no, but it was Colombia. It was Colombia.
Oh my
No, but like,
gosh.
and we'll hear some stories. So I've already recorded some of my interviews for this season of Nation of Immigrants, and you'll hear stories about a businessman who had to put up with political corruption in his country, was threatened by police and by gangs, and actually shot. To one of my clients who tried to become a police officer and was told that he had to get in line and be corrupt. To clients from Venezuela who were, you know, told that they had to be corrupt and cooperate with police and help with bribes, and so it's nuts what some of my clients have gone through. And so I kind of jokingly told you before we started that, like, I remember all of the cases that I've done. And that's true to a certain extent. Like when I start to review a file, I'm like, oh, I remember this. Holy cow, what have these people lived through? um and then there are the ones that really get to me, which are the domestic violence based ones, the sexual violence based ones. Those ones, I just really want to help people. Like that's what you said about me. I just really want to help. when somebody is in that situation, I just really want to help them get squared away because I feel like the universe owes them legal status in the US. If
Yeah.
they have lived through circumstances like that. And so I am devoted and committed and motivated by some of these stories that I have heard from my clients, and I care about how things turn out. And you know, you mentioned also like going in front of judges. I got to tell you, no matter how long you've been a lawyer, that can be nerve wracking, and it stinks to not get a win when you feel like you should. You know, I want to help,
Yeah. Mhm.
particularly when people have been through domestic violence that they can't escape in their home country. That's a difficult asylum case to win, unfortunately. And so sometimes I've won some and I've lost some. And that's the worst feeling, to lose that kind of case, because you know that these women are already struggling so much. And they are so brave to
Yeah.
come and tell their story to me and then to tell it in front of a judge in a court. Um, that's another kind of pet peeve of mine, is that we should kind of we should revisit mental health in the immigration court proceeding, and
Oh my
because we need
gosh,
to recognize that
yes.
everybody is living with trauma. Like, even just the trip up
Yes.
is traumatic, like you said. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I think that is probably one of the hardest things is to tell your story not once, not twice, but you're
Yeah.
telling it like 5 different times to 5 different people, and then you're just like, "Are they do they even believe me?" Like, you get to a point where sometimes the story just becomes, like, another part of your conversation, and just it's not easy to go about it, and then having to repeat it over and over and over again. You're just reopening that wound, and
Yeah.
then but you're also adding, "Oh my gosh, is this going to get me the help that I need?" You can't help but trust the person that's next to you, and you're like, "Okay, even though this is traumatic, I'm going to say it one more time because I know that the person next to me is going to help me." But I know, like, it's hard, and then when you don't get the kind of counseling that you need, you're just wallowing in all of that trauma all over again, especially when you have to repeat it multiple times, to
Right.
different people, and you're just like, "Okay," and you're reliving every moment that it happened, and you can't get away from it, even if you don't wanna share it again because, well, it's part of the proceedings. If you don't share the story, then it didn't happen. And I'm like, "Okay." So that is probably yeah. Because even driving up there, even the day that, like, the week comes and you're just like, "Oh gosh, I only have 4 more days and I have to do this all over again." And then the day comes and you're like, "Okay." So you're getting dressed and you're replaying the story in your mind so that way you remember how it went. But do you ever forget? No. It's you live it every day, every moment, and
Yeah.
then having to sit there, say it, and then you hold your breath. Do they believe me? Or is this going to help me get to the end game? And it's like and then once everything goes quiet and they're like, "Give us 2 hours, please. We'll be right back. Recess is adjourned."
Right.
And
Right.
then and then you
Stuff like that.
sitting there like, "Okay, here we go. Like, what's gonna be the verdict?" It's hard.
You,
It's not easy at all.
you have a really good sense for that, Sonia. Um, yeah. I mean, one of the things that I would say that I kind of want to add is one of the conversations I have with a client, especially if they've been through domestic violence or sexual violence, is I'll tell them, look, this is hard, but for you to be able to testify in a way that people will believe you, you have to get therapy. And I will give them a list of people who speak Spanish and can provide those services. I'd say that mental health is probably the biggest need that have outside of maybe legal services that I have seen. And
Yeah.
so that is a huge component, because retelling that story can be re-traumatizing every time, or it's fascinating in the right context with a therapist. Retelling your story can be just what you need to heal from it. And so that's kind of why I said we need to kind of reform and relook at how immigration courts look at, you know, how they collect testimony in that way, because it could be that our legal system is hurting people, and that's not good. And so
Yeah.
it's something definitely that needs to be part of the conversation, which is the point of this podcast, is to have this conversation. And I know that people are having it in the country right now. It's not particularly civil. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I'm gonna make it civil. And
Fortunately.
we'll post this online on YouTube, and you will see how uncivil it gets. So but but I am committed to sharing these views because there are people out there who will be influenced by it, who are going to listen to you and others of my clients and recognize, wow, I did not know that it was like that. My opinion has been changed. That would be
You
my
know,
hope.
it's funny you say that because when I was talking to my coworkers maybe a few weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be on a podcast." They're like, "A podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm just a woman of many hats, I guess." And, I was like, "Well, it's gonna be with my immigration lawyer." They say, "Immigration lawyer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wasn't born in the US." And that's when this, like, can of worms opened up because they did not know the process. So I was getting, like, question after question after question, and I'm like, "Oh, I was just trying to talk to you about the podcast." Um,
It's
okay, so
funny.
then I had to I was answering their questions, and, like, one of them was like, "Well, how old were you when you came to the US?" And I'm like, "I was 3." And they're like, "Well, you don't have an accent when you talk." And I'm like, "Well, that's because I was 3 when I came to the US." And I was, even I was raised in the South. I'm like, immediately from it's 3, and then 5 years old comes around, and I'm in, what, kindergarten? And I'm around all of these Americans. I picked up, because being at a young age versus
Mhm.
being when you're here at 15, it's very big development.
Yeah.
So I picked up the English language so much faster than somebody who, is 15 and it just came into the US. Um, Talked to them about like visas, and they're like, the only visa that I hear people talk about is DECA. They're like, "Oh, do you have DECA?" I'm like, "No, I don't have DECA. That's not for me. Like, I don't fall into those." And they're like, "There's more visas than just that." And I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, there's so many different visas." And it's like there's some that will follow, your nationality. There's some that correlate for you better. Like there's student visas, there's entry visas. Like there's so many. And it was like, I don't know, just sitting at them, just watching them as I'm answering their questions. I'm like, you only thought it was a black and white
Right.
kind of situation. But the fact that it's a multicolor situation, like, okay, because you have this doesn't mean you can't get this. Just because you're here doesn't mean that you can get that. And then, like, I found out that my boss, she said that, oh my gosh, this was like back in like 1980, I believe. Um, I cannot remember where she said her dad is from, but he's not like he's an immigrant because at that time he had to pay 10 grand to start the process
Mm.
for his visa. And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not that." She goes, "Now I don't even wanna know how much it would be to, like, money in this day." I
Yeah.
said, "I don't wanna know either because I don't have it." And, I was like, it's like the different scenarios that you're put through, or,
Yeah.
like, and it's, different situations. Like, I'm sitting here, I can thank God I have a job, I can work, I have multiple cars. The only thing I can't do is go to school, but, that's a topic for a different
We're
day.
working on that.
That's the only thing that, but, I look at the people next to me who come to the dealership and buy a vehicle, and I'm like, "You wish that you had what I have." Because I have my license, I have a
Yeah.
social,
Yeah.
I get healthcare, I the benefits that I have, and they only have, like, a fraction of that, if they have the fraction. Because it all depends on what their scenario is, what kind of visas they're doing, or what kind of process they're under. Everybody's is different. Because Bob down the street could be going to school but can't have a license, can't buy a house, but I'm the opposite. I can get all those things that he can't, but I can't go to school. So it's just like it's mind-blowing to view how everybody has a different situation and what they can and cannot do. 'Cause ever you hear visa and they think, "Okay, this they can do this, they can do that." Actually, no. It's not that easy.
Right. That's
So,
something that I think when I've talked to people, they've been surprised by actually, is I think some people
mhm.
really believe that, well, if you just do it the right way and get in line, you can come from El Salvador and retire in Florida if you want. but it's
Right,
not like that
no.
at all. It's not like that at
Like, we
all.
we came in
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not even close. We came in illegally, yes, but which we came in around the time that what was the president in 1999?
Clinton and then
I can't
Bush.
okay, one of the 2, whichever
It would have
one it
been
is.
Clinton at the time.
Okay, he gave out pardons around that time
It was a
that,
TPS
like,
is what you're
okay.
talking about.
Yes. So it's like you came in illegally, you will admit that you came in illegally, but we can pardon you. And that is where my mom and my parents and I started the whole process, and that's
Mhm.
what started and where we are now. So, yeah, we came in illegally. We're grateful that at the time that we came into the US, that pardon was happening. Because I don't even want to imagine what it would be like for me today if that pardon was not happening. So, mom had to contact a lawyer and inform, accept the penalty of, yes, we came into the US illegally, but this is XYZ why we're here. And I couldn't imagine the life that I would have if that was not the case at the
If that's
time.
hadn't been where you started.
And
Right.
right. And then I know that, if given the option, any immigrant would take it. Any
Yeah.
of them would take it to have the benefits that come with it because some of them come in wanting just to try anything to get pardoned and to start the process of a visa. Some of them don't care how long it takes, as long as they get the help and they're being recognized as, hey, look, I know I came in illegally, but I came in for XYZ, but I'm trying to do it the right way. I
Yeah.
have a lawyer. I will pay. And the thing is though, they will try to go out of their way to make sure that they're following the process. But it's
Yeah.
not I mean, it's hard when you're blocked left and right, and, okay, my only option is going through A. Okay, fine, I'll drop the 10 grand, but it's like,
I know
these are
so
the
many
same people that you're
clients
trying to
that
keep out.
right. I know so many clients that if there was a way to legalize, they would go for it. But there
Yeah,
isn't a line, and I think that's the thing.
right,
And then
exactly.
I wanna say this because I know it's one of those questions out there, which is immigrants are not criminals. I know that might be a surprise to somebody hearing that, but
What?
study after study after study shows that immigrants commit crimes at a lower rate than the regular population. So, um, this
Yeah,
idea that immigrants come, that they don't pay taxes, that they take our jobs, and they commit crimes is a narrative that has been constructed, but it's not the truth. And the reality is that immigrants have been buoying up our economy in this post-pandemic world. And
mhm,
if we only unleashed their capacity and ended, we don't have a brain drain, but we're putting a stop on some of this brain power that could come our way with people who have come here and are seeking legal status. There's so many good things that could come if we were friendlier to immigrants right now. So,
yeah, and on note with that, I know that right now there's been a lot like, and I think it's everything that goes with what's happening currently with the border and everything, and
mhm,
then there has been some crimes that have popped up of of certain murders that have happened, here recently, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is why the border needs to be doing what they're doing, da 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 da."
right.
And I'm like, "Okay, I'm not gonna say that I'm not justifying what happened. I'm not, but you can't put A and B together and
Yeah,
think this is the reason why. You know how many other people kill each other around the US that are white, that are black, that are like they're all everybody the crime is going to be inevitable regardless of what we do.
right.
But just because the last these, few two that have popped up happen to be Hispanics with no legal status. That
Yeah,
doesn't make all of us criminals.
yeah,
Like, just because but everybody, every nationality has those few apples that have gone sour.
yeah,
But you can't blame the entirety of that nationality just because based on these apples. I mean, we all have that regardless of what nationality we are.
yeah,
So I'm like, we're not all criminals. Some of us want to pay our taxes. We go to work. We have our few hobbies and then we go to bed and wake up to do it all over again. We're not like don't put us all under that umbrella just because there's a few, that, fell off, but we all have that
Mhm.
regardless of our color of our skin.
Sonia, thank you for coming on to Nation of Immigrants and for talking to me. I've enjoyed the chance to catch up with you and to talk about some of these issues. For those of you who are watching or listening, Nation of Immigrants is my podcast. This is the first episode of my second season. If you had listened to what we'd done in the past, that was more of a policy driven podcast. This is going to be interviews with clients, and you're going to hear their stories and learn about the things that they think about, the things they care about, their lives, their values, their hopes, their American dreams. And I'm so excited to share that with you. And I know that my clients are too, those that have been willing to come onto the show. And we're excited to kind of pull back this layer and share that with you. Sonia, is there anything you want to say as we wrap up?
No, it was a pleasure being on here. Never expected to ever be on a podcast, to be honest. But yeah, if hopefully this reaches out to the right, community, the right ears. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help Jacob answer any questions. Because since I know that I'm the one going through the process, I'm the illegal alien. I can,
You're not
better
an illegal
answer
alien.
those questions.
You totally have
Not
status. I want
anymore,
everybody to
guys.
know she's got status. She's got status.
But since I'm the one, going through the process, I'm the one living with it day to day. If you have any questions for me, Jacob can reach out and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Oh,
But
wow.
no, it was a great time.
Uh,
Hopefully, we were able to answer any questions or even bring up any discussions that you might have or did not know that you did not know you had. But no, it was a great time and it was a pleasure talking to you as always. So hopefully we can do this again sometime.
It'd be fun. Maybe after you get your green card, become a citizen, we can have you back on. That'd
Woo!
be
We can
awesome.
celebrate.
So, like and subscribe. Feel free to comment. We look forward to talking with you and opening the conversation about immigration in the United States. Thanks again.